Hi, Dave here, and this is episode 28 of the art review series. And today we're going to take a look at the work of Minovo Wang. Now, I'm not sure if that's his actual first name, Minova, but that is his ArtStation name. I don't have any links concerning this guy. He doesn't have any kind of side links in his about page, but yeah, so we'll be focusing obviously on his ArtStation portfolio, and he does have a lot of work, but I did try my best to pick out the ones that I liked the best, or the ones that I could easily kind of talk about. Yeah. So Minova actually does have a very interesting style. It's kind of a mix between abstract or very kind of loose painting plus photo bashing, and it is kind of an interesting approach, and it's pretty common here on ArtStation where what am I trying to say? Where photo bashing plus it's not exactly like Derek Zabrocki's work. The last guy we reviewed on this art review series, it's a bit more not as defined actually. How can we kind of explain this? As you can see, even though there's kind of a lot of things going on here, it's not as defined. It's not, I wouldn't say it's painterly because he doesn't use a lot of painterly brushstrokes. It doesn't actually look like an oil painting, and it is kind of its own genre, kind of a mix between photo bashing and painting. Again, not exactly like Derek Zabrocki. Derek Zabrocki does bring out his painterly strokes and brushes, or at least shows off that kind of appeal. But this one is very typical, not super kind of typical, but it's pretty common here on the community in ArtStation to do, or pretty common to see in this community. And this one is actually pretty loose. He does a lot of very impressionistic strokes, kind of suggesting the forms of this kind of mech thing. He does use a flat brush for this one. I don't think he does have a set brush, kind of a common brush that he constantly uses. He's kind of all over the place actually. But what's very common in his work is the mix between the photo bashing, kind of the collage kind of photo bashing, plus his very kind of dynamic painting, because he's not a very detailed painter, which is actually what I'm a fan of. Not very super detailed, very kind of bold and kind of impressionistic, right? So this one is a character. Obviously the figure is photo bashed. Now the face is kind of off for me. I'm not sure if he was trying to put the hood kind of on the side intentionally, but the face does seem very off to me. Like, it's too big, first of all, and it's kind of shifted to the right, which is kind of it doesn't feel right in my eye, right? So here you can see some of his, this one is actually a more textured brush right here, a flat brush. And yeah, he does a good job of kind of making it work, right? The kind of photo collage he does, and then or photo bash, and then he paints over it to kind of make it at least blend well together in some way. Here's another example of that. You can see some of his paint strokes, plus of course photo bashing in some photo elements from all sorts of things, I think. And the thing about this photo bash kind of approach, it's very similar to Johnson Ting's approach. It is very interesting how you can create a lot of designs with the help of photos, right? But I am kind of wary of that, and I did kind of hold off on that for a bit, because I did notice in my previous portfolio I was doing too much of it, and I wasn't changing much from the photo. I was just adding texture after texture after texture, and it just ended up very unoriginal for me. And I wasn't actually painting, right? And that for me is the thing that I'm trying to work on, doing more paintings. And then once I get a good feel of my painting process, of my personal approach, I think I can include back the photo bashing to kind of make it work for me. Because I don't want the photos to be the designers of the piece. Because I feel like if you're not good at painting, you can be very kind of tied up with the photos you pick. And yeah, it's going to, in a way, limit your creativity if you don't have that that kind of artistic mind that you are the creator and not really the... Yeah. Hopefully you get my point, right? So here you can tell he did use a chick, and then he painted on and then he painted on her back, adding a lot of elements, and he did make it consistent enough to make it look like it is one thing, making sure the colors are right, the yellows, and even some details like these circle things. You know, I think that helps to make it more consistent. Yeah. So another kind of photo, and then he painted on top of it. Shit, I can't talk. Fuck. Maybe I just need some water. Yeah, but oh shit. But it is kind of well blended, and I like it. Although the face seems too big for me. Now this one is a back view of a guy, and then he painted in some kind of a suit, kind of support system. He did try to make it symmetrical in the perspective form, right? Very interesting. I'm not sure if he painted the bottom part too. So here obviously he does have a photo in the beginning, and then he painted on top of it, adding these kinds of mechs, or not mechs, but this mechanical kind of design, this robotic kind of support system, similar to the one in the kind of the Elysium film and the Edge of Tomorrow movie. I think that's very similar in a way. And again, it's actually does look a lot like the work of Johnson Ting. I did an art review of Johnson Ting's work a few episodes back, and there are a lot of similarities in a way. So here the photo is obviously this guy in a kind of jacket, and then I'm not sure where he gets these photo parts, maybe from bikes or something, or from some kind of military kind of gear. But yeah, this head is kind of well blended together, and you can get a lot of interesting designs by photo bashing, right? Here the photo is obviously some kind of military base, and then he painted on top of the heads and added some extra gear. Even this guy has a different head and has some kind of gear with him, and you can see it in the leg as well. This kind of support system, very interesting and pretty cool. The heads are actually kind of unique. Each one of them has their own kind of design. Again, you can tell this one is a photo, and then he painted on top of it. Now again, I would be very wary of this, because I think people want to see your design skills, right? I mean, you are kind of showing your design skills by manipulating photos, but I think you should be able to do something from start to finish, right? With the help of photos, sure, but this is kind of a tricky thing when it comes to photo bashing, right? Yeah, so this one is a mixture of some kind of traditional wear, a kimono, not sure, plus a very interesting kind of helmet. And again, if you do something like this, you should be able to do this in different views, I think. And well, not really, but I'm not sure what my point is. So this could be some kind of 3D model or photo, perhaps. And then he painted on top of it. But it's actually pretty good sometimes in being able to blend things, like this one. Again, very similar to Johnson Ting's work, especially when it comes to the theme, the police, the military kind of gear. But you have to make sure that when you're photo bashing something like this or adding photos, you have to make sure the design is consistent, because sometimes it can look very, for example, in this photo, this one looks way more consistent. Like you'll see similar kinds of forms throughout each kind of mechanical element. For this one, it's kind of off, especially the head, right? Like it does fit the shoulder a bit, but it's kind of off to me. So just be wary of that. But again, you can save time by just using a photo underneath, but make sure you paint well enough on top of it that it looks kind of cohesive, right? Nice, okay. Now the back is actually kind of packed, and it feels like there's a lot of things going on here, but it seems well blended enough. I do like the head design, and again, you can come up with very interesting concepts by using photos and kind of let the photos help you to fill in the details, right? And you're kind of the main guy that decides the silhouette, right? It's very similar to using some kind of texture brush or something to fill in the details. And yeah, although it's kind of off with the background to me, like the lighting is kind of off. This one's too lit, right? But awesome. Oh, this specific view does remind me of the work of Johnson Ting, especially his kind of pirate piece, or not just the pirate piece, but the one with the Gatling gun, where he started off with a photo of a guy with some kind of machine gun in a helicopter, and he does have a similar kind of viewpoint to this. So yeah, and they also both use this photo bashing kind of technique, although I would say Johnson's work is a little cleaner compared to Minovo Wang's work. Minovo Wang is more, at least based on his portfolio, more kind of impressionistic, or has more impressionistic stuff. This one is actually kind of clean to me. Yep, so obviously this part is the photo bash thing, and he started off with the photo underneath. Now for me, like, how do you figure out the design this way? It's kind of hard for me. Yeah, this kind of thing is kind of far off for me. Maybe someday I'll start using more photos. But again, I do want to be able to paint things more. For example, this thing is a photograph, and then he painted on top of it. Now it's hard to say which parts he painted and which parts are the photograph. So that's kind of cool. And it's kind of hard to tell. But it can be kind of deceiving in a way, because I've seen some comments in some of his work. I think they're kind of new to this thing, and they somehow can't see, or they can't yet see, whether something's a photo bash or not, and they actually think someone rendered it. And it happens in the beginning when you're kind of new and you haven't seen enough photo bashed work. Very nice gun though. Now I do like the way he did this kind of he made it symmetrical. Now the actual photo behind it does help, but yeah, very cool kind of design. This one actually seems more consistent. Even the color scheme does seem more consistent or cohesive. And whenever you're designing something like this that's complicated, make sure I think it's good to make sure you have repeating kind of motifs or elements, so it doesn't look super disjointed and kind of randomly photo bashed. So here is pretty good. This one's pretty cool. So definitely a photo. here. And again, the head is kind of he does focus more on kind of sci-fi stuff, on characters, androids, those types of things. Oh, he did add a kind of lens correction effect with the kind of green and red kind of shift, right? And I do like this more, where you can see a lot of the paint strokes plus the photos. It has a nice kind of a 50-50 kind of look, right? And I would avoid relying so much on the photo. You have to be able to change something a bit, because again, this is the type of, it's a bit iffy or risky, I guess, right? Because assuming you want your work, you want some of your pieces, or at least most of your pieces, to be published or publishable, right? And you want to make sure it's not as dependent on like 90% of the photo, right? I would recommend you go to Johnson Ting's channel, because he does have like video time lapses of his work. We're sure he does have a base photo, but it ends up changing so much that you can't really pin anything on him, you know what I mean? And you want to be able to have that control and not depend too much on the photo bashing. And this is what I'm afraid of, where I don't change too much of anything and it just kind of add things or use a bunch of blending modes. For example, Jumabaev, a very common, popular concept artist. He does have a few pieces where he does use an opaque brush to kind of blend. I think he has kind of a crocodile piece and kind of a guy riding a buffalo, and you can tell he did use a photo, but he did use some photos, but it's so well blended, right? And he changed so much of it that it kind of looks like a concept art piece. And you know, like you're not you don't start to question it, you know what I mean? If something is too reliant on the photo, you'll start to have kind of doubts, and you know, you can lose confidence, I guess. No, he doesn't have a lot of these, but these ones are pretty cool. Line sketches, and he did color the top part of it with some flat colors, and he can actually do some pretty interesting mechanical kinds of designs. For example, this part right here, especially this one, the way he handled the neck part and the mid section of the torso. Very kind of full designs, although he doesn't have a lot of these, unfortunately, but he can do them. So I guess it's kind of easier for him to design with the photos, because he does have a nice kind of base knowledge, right? For example, this one, he did use a photo, and then this one is actually pretty cool. It's very well, like the colors, the design, it kind of all fits together. You know what I mean? Pretty cool. And I love the hat, kind of a nice touch. Oh, look at that. Interesting. Oh, he does environments sometimes. This one's pretty cool. He painted this guy. Some photo textures for the wheels. Right? Makes sense. It's actually a pretty well put piece. He doesn't have a lot of environments though. And here's a different version of it. Maybe a process kind of shot. I think he did use the cutout filter for this one. Maybe he does use it in his process to kind of help break down an image, right? Very interesting. I might try to explore the concept of using the cutout filter. Here, he does have the same thing. And then I believe he has this one's the final one. Maybe he'll do a photo bash, and then apply a cutout filter to kind of break down the image a bit, and then he'll paint over it. Maybe that's his process. He doesn't have a YouTube channel, so kind of sad, but fuck it, you know. And again, very interesting kind of design. Again, it's not super detailed, but it does get out the concept, right? Or get the concept out. Not a lot of Viking stuff or kind of historical kinds of themed work, but this one's pretty cool. It's kind of a keyframe but in portrait mode. These guys are in a marketplace, right? And this piece is actually pretty warm because most of his work is, sci-fi, and they're kind of in a cool side, the blues, the dark grays or bluish grays. You've got some warms here, so it's kind of a nice break from his typical work. This one I actually like, although he did simplify the face. I love this kind of painting, very bold, very kind of confident, and he can actually paint, but yeah. And he does use some textures, or he has some texture in some of his brushes. Very cool design. I would consider this a sketch, obviously, but yeah, still cool. I love the colors, very kind of natural-esque. Nice kind of complementary thing going on, the red, the blue, right? Or the green and the red, right? And here you can see, I think this is a good one. It's kind of a mix between some very bold brushstrokes plus some photo textures. To me, this is a kind of a nice, it has a nice look to it. Kind of a collage kind of look. Now, obviously a collage is kind of too cut or too photo based. If you just painted over it, I think it would look pretty cool. And he did leave some of these kinds of artifacts from the photo. I think that can add some appeal, especially in your concept work. Maybe not for a full illustration, but pretty cool. This one could be some kind of study, painted, right? Oh, I think he did use a cutout filter for the face. Maybe. Oh, this one's pretty cool. I love this one a little more. More energy, more brushstrokes. And you know what? Maybe I should try using the cutout filter. Looks pretty cool for me. I think Shinku Kim, which is another artist that we're going to review someday, has a few pieces where he does use the cutout filter to help him, or he uses it in his process. Very interesting. But yeah, more studies, grayscale, a flat brush, I think. Now these ones I believe are some of his environments. I do like these ones because they're kind of very, I think they're very useful. For example, this one. This is the type of work that I would expect from concept artists, right? Like if you're doing a lot of paintings, the kind of mix between the paintings and the photos, right? And I think you need to be able to pump out a lot of concepts in your kind of production process. And I think this is a good kind of approach to have because it looks very consistent to me. You can obviously see some of his brushstrokes and some photo textures, but it's well done. And I love the way he handled the light, the kind of the dashes of light. Very interesting. And the shadow here on this guy. And for these ones, he doesn't make the image too big. Pretty small. But for a concept, just to get the idea out, you can do these pretty quickly, I would say. Or I believe. This one is pretty, you can see a lot of the photo textures, right? But the concept is kind of out there. Pretty cool. It's kind of enough to show your idea to someone so they can recommend some changes, right? And then you can take it further to a more finished kind of piece. Now these ones are pretty cool. Thumbnails, grayscale, some are black and white, right? Very interesting. He does add some texture, or has some texture again in some of his brush work. But yeah, again, he can paint, so I think he's set on that part. And so he did paint the environment and then had a kind of character or probably a photo and then added more elements to it. And again, it's kind of well blended, right? because there are actually quite a few artists on ArtStation where they're pretty good with blending the two. Of course, Derek Zabrocki is one of them, but yeah, I think Minovo Wang is also in that group, right? Although he does have a few pieces where people kind of pointed out that, I don't know, this one's pretty cool. He warped this part, right, and then painted some parts in the kind of this side, right? Even this mountain is pretty much painted. Maybe these ones are kind of pulled out with the transform tool, but he used the photo well enough, right? He determined the values early on, probably. For example, this side is darker, like this side, because this side or this part of the mountain is being lit. The same goes for this side, right? Especially this side, it's pretty much white or close to white. I think it's a good kind of concept or concept sketch, right? This one you could actually see. This is a photo. He kind of pulled it to the side, right? And then he painted on top of it. Pretty cool. Now this environment is obviously or has a foggy kind of atmosphere, very misty. And for these guys, for these two characters, and even some parts of this kind of truck or Humvee, painted with a flat brush in the vertical mode. Very interesting. Even the environmental elements in the background, very cool. And maybe some squiggly brushstrokes to indicate the grass. But I love this kind of atmosphere. Well done. And he didn't use a lot of brushes. A simple flat brush in the vertical mode, right? Very cool kind of design for the head. Now this is something that I actually like, because I do have a kind of interest, or I have a thing for not so finished work, or maybe not. Maybe that's not the word, for kind of almost close expressive or kind of abstract kind of work. Very suggestible, not super defined. I think that's kind of my thing. Kind of that, plus the energy in this piece is kind of cool. It's not kind of a boring collage photo bash, you know what I mean? It does have some kind of energy. Even the way it's photo bashed. He did use some lasso tools for this one. Some photos for the head and maybe some parts of the body. And there's a lot of things going on. He does have some texture in the bottom. Some very small lines on the shoulders. So there's a kind of a nice variety of things going on here. And it is very interesting. I like the appeal. So this one is a different kind of concept. Now this one has more of a face. You can see the eyes. The shoulders are a bit more developed in this one. The gun is slightly more defined, right? Very interesting. So this one is a mix, kind of a photo bash of different things, plus some lasso tool work, right? The front of this kind of aircraft does remind me of the MiG something the Russians have, right? Looks very similar to me. Yeah, he did use some kind of NASA photo perhaps, or maybe a guy in some kind of submarine, and he did paint on top of it, you can tell here. And obviously the head, he did change the head, but for the rest of the body, I can't really see, the paint over. And I wouldn't recommend you doing this sort of thing unless it's kind of part of the project, like someone literally gave you a photo and they asked you to paint over it on a certain part. Sure, but for a portfolio piece, I think people want to see more of your skill, right? And I don't think this one is enough to show off your skill set, right? So this one, he did start out with a photo and then he changed the design a bit. He made the wings kind of come forward a bit, added kind of an extra kind of X-wing in the back, Oh, this photo bash right here looks kind of odd. But I do like the design. And photo bashing is also a nice way to design quickly without having to paint like everything. And I think they're really great for coming up with quick concepts. But you obviously have to make sure you have enough painting skill to blend things enough to kind of fix things, because whenever you use the lasso tool and start transforming it with all sorts of other elements, it's going to look very collagey. So make sure you have enough painting skills to blend it enough so it doesn't kind of confuse the person that you're doing the photo bash concept painted thing for. This one's pretty cool. I like the way he did the leg. Very simple. Almost a silhouette. And oh, look at that brushstroke. Very confident. Love it. Oh, I do like this piece. It's kind of a nice mix between the photo bash and the very kind of energetic kind of painting strokes. Very bold painting strokes. Bold painting strokes. Very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, even though this one is pretty simple, he did photo bash in the face, so that's kind of okay. The lips is kind of off though. He should have tilted it at least kind of in this way to make it more horizontal, right? Yeah, it's kind of off-putting to me, but look at the energy of this piece. Even though it's more sketchier than his typical concept sketches, I still like it though. I think it's because he was able to solve the big areas in the beginning, and he did spend enough time to figure out the silhouette, right? And look at even the way the hair is kind of flowing. It kind of fits the flow of the leg. Okay. Very interesting. So maybe this guy does have a kind of a background in basic gesture drawing, right? Very flowy kind of thing here. Another kind of photo bashed piece. Oof. I do like the helmet design. And again, very kind of abstract. It reminds me a bit of Jeff Simpson in a way, right? Because he does, he does photo bash bit. And I think Jeff Simpson has more of a fine art kind of feel in his work. Minovo Wang is more of the expressionist, abstractist photo basher, right? Now this was actually one of the photos that people, it's very well liked. I remember seeing this in the community page on ArtStation, but someone was able to find the original photo. It's somewhere here. And now take a look at this piece. First of all, hot chick, awesome. Now just take a mental snapshot of this chick, and then go back to Minovo Wang's work. He did change a few things, but it wasn't enough, and I think some people did notice that. Obviously, maybe he already thought that this was a pretty cool design, and then he wanted to kind of take it further, right? So he only focused on the parts that he wanted to change. That kind of makes sense. But again, if you're trying to make something or add something to your portfolio, I think what people want to see is you make something from nothing. Maybe a blank canvas, maybe some random photos, but people want to see, I think, the way you take something and change it and make that something beautiful in some way, or make a concept out of a thing, right? I think people want to see that kind of resourcefulness or that kind of ballsiness to start from very few things, right? Or reference photos, whatever, or kind of shit brushstrokes, very kind of impressionistic silhouette types of brushstrokes. But the thing about this photo is that without the photo bashing, it's already pretty cool. from the get-go. I mean, this chick is hot. I love the design. It's kind of she's not fully kind of covered, but not overly kind of, you know, like everything is like you can see the belly and everything, where it's just basically, you know, it's almost unrealistic. But this one is kind of not bad, you know. Love the pose, love the gear, and even the nice kind of eyeshadow. Fuck, is it an eyeshadow? It's kind of an eyeshadow. Fuck, I have no idea what that is, but it's a nice kind of makeup, I guess, with some dirt. I mean, pretty cool stuff, but yeah, he did make it slightly cooler. I think he wanted to make the arm kind of metally in some way, and he did add a nice highlight to make that thing appear as a kind of metal arm. But most of it is still the photo, so I think people do have just be wary of that kind of thing. Yeah. And if you're going to use this chick, make sure you paint over her a lot or add some more to her. If the concept is already cool from the beginning, maybe you shouldn't you could use it as a reference, but you have to change something, right? If it's still essentially the same thing with some extra things, right? Nice job with the paint over though. I still like the kind of appeal, even the way he simplified the kind of back gear. Very simple, but it actually reminds me of the brushstrokes of John McCoy. Very kind of painterly strokes. You should check out John McCoy's website. I did an art review of this guy, and I did review his personal work. That's usually that's where you will see his more painterly stuff, where he doesn't really use a lot of photos. And yeah. So yeah, beware of that. Be wary. And even the face, he just kind of added the print. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, this one's pretty cool. He did make the wheels kind of smaller on the front. So it's kind of a mix between different mechs. It's kind of a tank. Oh, is that an R2D2 kind of thing? Maybe. Very cool. Looks consistent enough. Now you can tell this bottom part right here, this actual character, is a photo. I don't see a lot of paint over. Maybe for the sword, perhaps. And maybe he did extend the shoulders a bit. I can tell this is from some kind of fashion photo shoot. Right? The face is very interesting though. It's some kind of skeleton thing. So yeah. But again, I would suggest, my recommendation would be do more paint overs, and because for example the design of this chick, oh, he did paint over a bit. Oh, it's a pretty big photo, you can zoom in. He did add some stuff, but again, the jacket was already there, this sorts of buttons and the pants and the nice, oh, very sleek pants. They were already there in the beginning, right? So I don't know, but very cool nonetheless. Now this one is pretty cool, a nice sketch. So this one I think is more mixed. Did he add some noise? I think he did add some noise and added or sharpened it in the very end. Pretty cool. Okay, this one's kind of consistent. And I would recommend to check out a lot of kind of fashion photos, because they usually have a nice set of poses. Now they're not very dynamic. Usually they're kind of like standing poses. But if you're trying to figure out a character design, I would recommend to check out kind of fashion runway types of folks. Very cool design. It's very big, very kind of a cinematic kind of aspect ratio, right? A nice mix between the painting and the photo, right? Maybe this is some kind of film in the background that he based the colors from. Oh, he does have a few more line sketches. And again, he can actually do some mech designs, but I think he just wants to save time with the photos. Very interesting. This one actually doesn't feel like a mech. I think this is more of a suit, right? You can see the kind of spacing in between. Yeah, this is some kind of suit. Oof. Bad ass. Now the legs are kind of off. Like that's too big of a thigh gap. But very interesting. Yeah, I think it is a suit, right? Oh, maybe this is the opened up version. And when the guy is inside, it kind of closes up. Okay, okay. Nice. Oh, he does have an environment here. Someone did comment that they were reminded of the Evangelion thing. The Eva thing. Because in the kind of anime film, they do have this kind of cross. And that's usually where the angel comes up. It's kind of a big monster shit. And that's where the Evas, or the kind of half, they're kind of mechs, but they're also kind of organic biological mechs. That's when they kind of fight, you know, each other and shit. Very cool. The mountain, the way the mountain was painted, does remind me of Feng Zhu's brushstrokes. Kind of the flat brush kind of thing. Right? I do love the way this was blended. Excuse me. Although the shadow, or though this mountain should have been reflected on the water, I think. And that's actually a kind of a hard thing to do. I don't really have a technique for it so far. So I may have to figure that out eventually. Or I will figure that out eventually. I like the clouds though, in the bottom. And this kind of sphere in the center does have a nice energy to it. And he does kind of blend the clouds, or warp the clouds to go with the kind of circular form of the sphere right here. So I think that adds energy, and that's pretty cool. Whoa. And of course the way the values are set, it's darker here, slightly lighter, and then it gets lighter as you go further away. Okay, let's move on. Again, reminds me of Johnson Ting's work. He does. Johnson Ting does have a lot of this kind of thing. Now I'm not sure which parts Minova Wang painted, but to me it looks like a lot of this stuff is a photo, and I wouldn't recommend it. But for example, the shoes, the gun, this equipment right here, is that painted? I don't think so. Or maybe he's just that good. I don't know, man. It looks like a photo to me. Even this gear in the back. Yeah, I think it's a photo of some kind. He did add some kind of extra equipment, some kind of support system. The heads, obviously, for these ones are different. But you can tell this guy is in a hoodie and this guy is in a hoodie. I'm not sure how to, again, be wary of these types of things. They look cool though, but you want to be able to... Is this some kind of Ghostbuster kind of thing? Can't tell. Maybe. Not sure. I don't know. Nice. So you can see he did paint a lot of the mech in the beginning, and then he added more photos. Now this one is actually pretty cool, and a lot safer, I would say, and well blended. Okay. I do love these kinds of concepts where you don't have to detail everything, because personally I'm not that kind of guy that goes in for the details and stuff. I think there are a lot of artists that can fill that role. For me, I'm very kind of, I lean towards the work of Minovo Wang in a way. The same with Derek Zabrocki. Very impressionistic, very bold types of work. I do like this though. This one is I think there are two versions of this one. The butt is a bit too big though. Right? It's kind of out of proportion. Or maybe this is actually just a guy. Oh no. But yeah. Like I think you can see it. It's kind of too big for the body. Like sure, the butt can be that big, I guess. But the legs are too thick. And yeah, the butt is too big. Right? It's kind of bigger than the actual face. Oh well, it's kind of close to the size of the face, I guess. At least one cheek. But you know, it's a bit too big. And again, this could actually be a dude that's just kind of jacked. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I think I just changed the graphical elements on the side or something. Oof. I like this one. This one's more kind of loose. And I love how he showed the canvas texture in some of his brushes. Very nice touch to the kind of photo on top. Again, very bold. The way he paints, very loose. Right. Yep, I like it. It's more of a concept sketch. This one's more of, I think this could be some kind of keyframe, right? So he did have a photo in this area. Maybe there was a train here or something in the tracks, and then he added in a nice kind of head of some kind of massive neck. To me, it looks like a kind of head, right? Nice. So these types of things are actually not bad, where you take a photo and add something big to it, right? Maybe do change or add a few things on the side, but I think you can have most of the photo in, and you just want to kind of show people what you see when you see that photo. I think that's kind of not bad. But yeah, just make sure you don't overly rely on the make sure that the photo doesn't solve most of the problems, you know what I mean? Because if it solves most of the problems, why not just hire a photographer, right? or the photographer of this actual image. So you want to make that kind of conscious kind of decision, right? Or just keep that in mind. But again, the mech design, not bad. I love the kind of eye. Very menacing. Dun. Okay. I believe this was in the community page. And I like the way it's very well blended. It's almost a Derek Zabrocki piece. Although they don't use the same kind of brush. Minovo Wang does have a textured kind of opaque. It's more of a textured brush, but looks very kind of natural, I guess, because of the way it kind of suggests some kind of grit or a canvas kind of effect. And I think it blends well with the kind of collage photo bashing that Minovo Wang does. And to me, I remember actually being confused at the beginning as to what this thing is. But to me right now, I can actually see it. It's kind of a mech. And this is the pod, right? And then this mech is kind of emerging out of the water, I think. Right? Kind of makes sense. And I think I was too zoomed in on the actual photo. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Oh. And then right now I was like, okay, I can see it now. So, nice. And this is one of those concepts of his that did get some critique. And there were some people that thought this was actually some kind of 3D, well not 3D, but a painted thing. And they were impressed by the way he somehow illustrated the body, and it looks very real. And I think it happens when you're kind of a first timer. Oof. When you're kind of just going into this kind of field where you can't tell if it's a photo or not. And to me, when I saw this, I wasn't really kind of like amazed. I knew this was a photo from the very beginning, right? And then he added even more photos for the kind of head and back to kind of photo bash it in. But you know, people weren't able to see it the first time, and I think some may have developed a kind of false kind of perception, right? So again, be wary of these sorts of things. And someone actually in the comment section found the photo of this chick, because the head is kind of added in, so that's kind of nice. It's kind of a collage kind of thing, so that was more acceptable, I guess. But someone found the original photo for this nice body. Boom, right? Now you can tell from the head, this chick is wearing an earring, so he obviously changed the position of the head. But it's kind of too similar, you know what I mean? And you need to be able to change something. Even the pant, the thong remained, right? And he only added this kind of dashy kind of thing. So I mean, he did show what he saw when he saw this, probably, which is pretty cool. Oh, nice back though, right? Shit. I need to work on my pull-ups. I actually have some kind of a decent looking back because of my not push-ups, my pull-ups. It's not very ripped or very kind of jacked, but one day you will see my glory. Jesus, look at that back. The scapula and shit. But again, make sure change something, right? He did extend the legs a bit because the photo was too short, I can tell, right? So that was kind of cool. Even the boobs, he didn't change. He should have covered it at the very least, or kind of removed an arm and made it or turned it into some kind of bionic kind of thing. So yeah, be very wary. I mean, he did change the head, so maybe that's the only thing he wanted to show off, like what he saw when he saw the pic, right? But if he does have a lot of work beforehand, so it's kind of okay. But if you're kind of a beginner artist, I would suggest you learn how to paint, or maybe learn some 3D and kind of develop your ability to kind of start something and then kind of develop it to something that's an acceptable concept, right? Avoid having this, right? But if you're kind of more developed, sure, it's going to look kind of cool. Yeah. So let's move on. Okay. More photo bash kind of collage stuff. And again, the problem with this is you have to depend on the photos too much, especially on the poses. I'm not sure if this leg is painted. This could just be a collaged out leg. And here you can even see some of the reflections. That's not from the environment. I think it's from the actual person taking the photo, maybe. And this is why I wanted to shift back and go back and take a step back and focus more on my painting skills, because I do want to be more of a 2D guy. Eventually I will try and do more 3D, you know, with Blender and stuff, to kind of add to my skill set, sorry. But yeah, I did notice that I was too dependent on the right pose, the right picture, and I wasn't actually, you know, I think I was being too over-reliant on the photo, so I decided to take a step back and focus on my painting skills. And as I do my own projects, right? So, and you know, sure, I will kind of photo bash, but again, it should always be kind of secondary for me, and not the deciding factor, you know. Ooh, these ones are pretty cool, kind of character iterations of the same thing. Very nice. And again, this I think is a good example of a good blend between photo bashing and painting. Looks so consistent. Very cool. And looks very cool to me. Yeah. I love how he painted the arms though. Kind of very pointy, and this one's kind of a rounded, a bigger guy with a shield, with a bigger weapon. And I do think I need to do more of these where I have one design but I show off like different iterations of it. Very interesting. Great example again of photo bashing and painting at the same time. Oh, I think I made this the thumbnail of this art review episode. I think this is another good example of a photo bash kind of thing. This one actually has more painting on it compared to the photo. He did use a photo texture here, I believe, and maybe some for the helmet. You can even see it, this kind of blue part. But it's very energetic for me. I love it. The background is kind of blurred out. Looks very cool. And to me, I think that's a kind of a good metric. Not always the best metric, but if it looks cool, you know, not bad, not bad. So yeah, very awesome. And this is his last piece that we're going to review. This one's more well rendered together. He does paint and photo bash at the same time. Looks a little more consistent and more tighter, I would say. Now the legs are kind of a latex, I believe. Maybe. Oh yeah, maybe there was a chick here in this room who was wearing some kind of latex thing, and then he added on a kind of knight, right? Very interesting. But it's hard to say because it's so well blended. So this is another good example of a photo bash and painting kind of approach. But again, if you're kind of starting out, don't be so deceived, right, with these sort of things. Eventually you will develop an eye, because sometimes if you're kind of just starting out and you want to develop your painting skills, you can kind of be too focused on the details, and the photos actually do help. They're kind of part of the process. You don't actually have to paint them. Focus on the big picture and learn to paint things for the most part, or kind of at least the big picture stuff, and then add in the photos, right? So that's it for this episode of the art review series, episode 28. Yes, I think it's episode 28. I hope you have a good day, keep painting, and stay free.